bem, sejam muito bem-vindos ao Cultura de Excelência. Eu sou a Karen Ross e empresa receber vocês aqui. Aqui na Voito, teremos encontros semanais onde vamos conversar com mulheres de todo o mundo sobre propósito, melhoria do processo e gentileza. Hi, everyone. How are you? Welcome to Cultura de Excelência. I'm Karen Ross, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here. Here at Voito, we're having weekly meetings where we talk with women from all around the world about purpose, process improvement, and kindness. And today, before we welcome our fabulous guest, I just want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, use the QR code right here on the screen to download our handbook. The handbook is filled with insights and links and information about all of the episodes, and is something that will really be helpful for you. So don't forget, download the handbook. Well, now we're ready to get started, and we're going to be talking today about speaking with data and how the language of data can really help us improve the work that we're doing for our customers and our company. And the best person that I know to speak about this is my fabulous friend, Maria Hyeronides Barros de Lima. I call her Nides, and she is with Six Sigma Brazil. And Nides, welcome here. You speak perfect Portuguese. So I'm going to say, can you please introduce yourself and tell everybody all about yourself?
All right. Boa tarde a todos. Eu espero que todos estejam bem. Bom, eu vou falar um pouquinho de mim. Eu já trabalho há muitos anos, desde os meus 13 anos eu trabalho já, nascida no Ceará, mas criada aqui em São Paulo, e depois morei nos Estados Unidos um tempo, e estudei e me formei para poder falar esse idioma maravilhoso que eu sempre falei desde pequena. Na verdade, eu sempre trabalhei na área de recursos humanos. Os últimos 30 anos, mais ou menos, foi mais em área de recursos humanos. Eu fui gerente, eu dirigi também a área, e agora eu estou trabalhando na Six Sigma Brasil, que é uma empresa que eu tenho muita honra de poder fazer parte, onde eu posso apresentar as competências da Six Sigma para os nossos clientes, para as pessoas que precisam do tipo de trabalho que a gente faz, tanto pequenas, médias ou grandes empresas. A gente cabe em qualquer lugar que tenha processos. Então, é muito bom falar de redução de custos, e principalmente nesse momento que a gente está vivendo, com tanta crise que a gente vem vivendo há 2 anos, mais do que as outras que a gente já tinha, né? Com pandemias e tudo isso, mas quando a gente fala de redução de custo e trazer excelência para dentro do trabalho, é fantástico. Então, isso me faz muito bem, quando a gente pode mapear os processos e chegar à conclusão de que pode tirar alguma coisa boa para a empresa e trazer dinheiro de volta para o bolso da empresa. Tenho uma paixão muito grande pelo trabalho que a gente faz.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to add something that Nidas is also one of the country directors for Brazil for my Love and Kindness Project Foundation, and she's a fabulously kind person. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm just going to jump right into the questions. And the first one, this is such an important subject, is how can creating a culture of data within a company help that company? What is the impact?
Well, I want to answer on a different way. I just don't see another way to work without that culture. I mean, it makes people much more proactive. It makes brings a lot of results for the company as well. When you know what you're dealing with, it's so much easier. The impact is always so positive. So I can't see another way to work without it.
You know, I totally agree with you. And I was just before we start our recording here, I actually was talking with a company, and we were figuring out different ways to pull reports to look at data in a different way. And we had the engineering department, we had the sales department, we had the production department all together. And everybody said, oh my goodness, now that we can see all of this, like it's so much easier to make a decision about what to do.
Right.
So
That's right.
I totally agree with you. So many companies don't have a data-driven culture and they don't use data at all. What do you think, in your experience, are some of the main barriers that you've seen that prevent companies from using data?
Well, I think the main barrier are some people that are used to work with the past, and think with the past tools they had. And then it becomes a big issue. So if we do not change, we lose space in the company, we lose space in the market. And so we really have to not resist. We have to have acceptability to what the company is bringing to. Otherwise, the company will have issues.
I know, and as technology gets better and better and better, even in service companies, it gets so much easier for us to be able to collect that data. A lot of times I hear people say, but I don't want to like have a check sheet and write something down. It's so manual, right? But now our systems can pull a lot of just pull a lot of information for us. So we can
Mhm.
use that very easily. You were talking about people being resistant, and people are people. So, um, can you tell us a little more about how you think we could overcome people's resistance to change and to using data? What could managers do to help their people be more open?
The managers need to really become leaders, not only managing things. They have to manage people, and which is the biggest problem that we can have if this person does not know how to lead. The leaders have to sensitize people as well, of the importance of having these data. I think it's all about how to lead people and how to deal with people. It's not easy. I know I already was a manager, I was a director in a company in the past, and I know it's not easy because people have their ups and downs. But if we have the sensibility to understand people a little more, that helps us a lot, and to lead them and not be the boss only, but lead them on the best way and make them become leaders as well.
I love that. And when I've been working with companies that have started to implement data, like maybe they've had a huddle board where they never had a board before and they want to put on, all the different targets of how many we should do at this time, that sometimes people have been so upset because before that nobody could see how they were working, right? And now they think that their leader is going to come and judge them instead of coming to them and saying, oh, you must be struggling. How could I help you, right?
Right, right.
So I just think it's so important that communication with people also about why we're doing this.
Yes, right. And it's very important that people understand other ones, and put themselves on the other one's shoes, I think.
Yep, I think that that's kindness. If someone suddenly came along and said, "Hey, Karen, I'm going to start writing down what you do all of the time or put it on a board," I might feel a little worried too, right?
Well, I wouldn't like that at all. And it happened to me. I went to a place where it was something like that. I said, I'm going to leave. Okay, I'm not going to stay here. That's
Yes.
not the way we should do it.
So I think we really need to remember again, it's just not just managing things, right? The output, it's the really leading the people. I think that's a super fabulous insight. So
There's a heart beating inside.
yes, and everybody wants to do a good job. Nobody goes to work and doesn't want to. And we can use that data to actually help them to do a better job, but we have to remember to use it kindly, right?
Right, right.
So, what tools or software should every professional who sees the importance of being a data-based company, do you have suggestions of some tools or software that people could use?
Yes, I think that we always have to keep an eye on innovation for sure. But again, I keep thinking that with kindness, we always can have we can suggest that every professional has to have a good tool like a computer with an office in it and a cell phone where you can read some messages when they're outside of the business. I think we have to be connected to the world somehow, and again, be kind to them until they really get to use these equipment. Sometimes you say, well, it's so easy to use, like a laptop. It's so easy to use an iPhone or whatever phone. And the person doesn't know how to do it. So we have to put ourselves on their shoes again and understand what is the weakness they have and help them.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's so important because oftentimes people who become the managers or the leaders on the shop floor have been promoted from being the worker. And maybe now they don't know how to use Microsoft Excel to create all of those charts. And maybe they don't know how to go into the ERP system, right? And look up things. If we don't help them learn how to do that, then that's really unkind to them.
Yes, that's what I feel.
One of the things that I found actually since the pandemic that has been super helpful is all of this video technology that we have because look, you're all in Brazil and I'm here near Chicago and we can see each other and we could show each other different data, right? And we can connect with each other. I think that really makes a lot of help as well for people.
Right, exactly.
Well, now we've reached actually my favorite portion of the show, which is where we take questions from Voito's students. Because, of course, if you're a student, the best way to learn about something is actually by asking a question and getting it answered. So we have 3 questions from Voito students. So the first one is, what materials would you recommend to help students in their quest to become data speaking professionals?
Well, I think that at least a laptop, they need it. I'm thinking of Brazil. It's a little complicated sometimes to have it. But anyways, the most important is to have the equipment to make lots of researches. Every time that I've been seeing people learning things and getting aware of the situation is because they had the chance to research and understand what happens in the other countries and in the global world. So I think that at least he has to have a laptop or one of these small other things, that iPads or things like that.
It's funny because a number of years ago when I was studying for my black belt and I went and took a statistics course and people said to me, oh, you're so old. It's going to be very difficult for you to learn statistics, right? And I thought, oh, I can go to a course that I can learn that and that will be very helpful for the data. And I shouldn't make an assumption that just because it's not something that I studied when I was in college that I can't learn now, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we can all learn that. And again, things like teaching people how to use Excel, teaching people how to use those ERP and management systems within their companies. I think those are all things that we could really do to help people.
Right, exactly. And it's not because we are older that we can't learn. We can learn everything we want to. Even how to sew, right, Karen?
Yes, that's exactly it. So the thing is, help as a student, if you're in class now, even if you're worried and you think, oh, maybe I'm not so good at math, take a statistics course, right? Sign up. You can get help. You can get a tutor. Somebody will help you take a statistics course. Take a course on how to use all of the different Excel and Microsoft things that we will need when you're in business. Challenge yourself. It's easier to learn it when you're younger, right? So,
Right.
yeah, give it a try. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So, our next question is, what can you do to, a lot of companies do collect a lot of data, but now how can we analyze that data and take insights out to help a company?
Yeah, I think that we have to do lots of researches, analyze them, and pay attention to the voice of the market, because which is the voice of our customers, and we have to think about innovative actions. So when I came into to Six Sigma, I learned so much because I didn't have the idea of how rich it is to work in an organization that you have to map and know exactly what you have to do, and then listen to the voice of the customer and attend them. So I think the most important is to research a lot and go and find other ideas from other people. I learned a lot with a person called Karen Ross. So I suggest you guys to check her once in a while because she knows a lot about this, and she knows how to be kind to the customer. That's what I always listen from her.
That is very, very kind. And thank you. And, I agree with you that many companies, they're collecting all that data, but if
Yes.
we don't actually use it to make a decision that's helpful, how could we better serve our customer? How can we better reach our company's goals? Then the truth is, in some ways, collecting that data is very, very wasteful. And I think you've told us the most important thing in thinking about the data. What does your customer need? Right? So is your customer saying, like, just a very simple example, if your customer wants us to answer the phone in a call center on the first ring, we can check the data on the phone logs, right? And we find out, guess what? We're only answering on the 10th ring. We can know this is not what our customer wants, right?
No, he doesn't want that.
And we have to do something to improve that. So I think that's really the most important thing to do with our data, to really understand what our customer wants and to check our data to make sure that our processes are producing what that customer wants. And if not, how do we make that change and monitor using our data to make sure they do?
Right. Exactly.
All right, so displaying data is very important too. So once I worked in a company and they had all this data, and every week they sent me a spreadsheet, Nidus, that had like 32 columns along.
Oh my gosh, my goodness.
To see it, I would have to like scroll over and scroll over. It was so hard to understand anything, and it took me so much time. How we display our data is very important. Do you have some tips for people to make it more attractive and easier for people?
Well, especially on a spreadsheet, I think that what I do, I just I identify all the things that I want to put in order, and I try to identify. I use colors. I like to use colors, and I like to use the research, highlights, and things like that to call the attention. Because sometimes, to do not forget, we have to. I like to see colored things on my spreadsheet. So I put lines with the colors, and the ones that are okay, I put in green, and the ones that are not okay yet, I put in red. That's what I do. For me, I like to see something that has color, so it makes my eyes shine better.
I think that's a super important tip, and again, it helps us to think with that analysis, right? If it's red and there's a problem, I need to think more about what to do about it. If it's green and it's okay, maybe I can pay less attention to it at the moment. So I love that. I love that organizing in color. And I think even just we have to think to ourselves when we're creating a spreadsheet or creating a report,
Yeah.
is there something we could leave off, right? If I have 32
Yeah.
columns.
So many numbers, so many things all together. If you don't separate them, like you can put a yellow on it's almost ready or something like that. But I think that's how I work, and it works well for me.
Yes. And then I think also in our virtual world, one of the things that I've noticed is that when we share something on the screen that has a lot of numbers and a lot of columns, make sure that you remember a simple tip, make it bigger, right? Because maybe you can see it okay on your screen, but the other people who are looking at their small window, it's like teeny tiny for them. They can't see it.
Yeah. And they're like trying to look at it and don't see it at all.
Yeah, sometimes I know it's too small because when I look at the people on the screen, I can see everybody is looking like this. Then I'm like, oh, I should blow up the data to make it bigger. So I think even some old-fashioned things, like if you use a whiteboard and write on the numbers so it's bigger, and again use those different colors. Those are
Yes, that's
sometimes the old way is a good way too, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I already, sometimes I'm doing something and Clovis asks me, how did you do it? I said, well, I won't tell you because it was an old style. I play with them.
Yeah.
I was just, just kidding. But it's true. Sometimes we have to use the other way and use the machine to, add things and, you can use it, the adding machine and things like that. That people now say, oh, only things on spreadsheet. No, sometimes we need some help and some support on
Yes.
our cell phone. Everything on a cell phone, so we can do it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the thing is, one of the things is we really have to think about when we're displaying data and we're using data, how other people can see it, not only how we can see it, but it really is, if we're not using our data, then it's going to be very hard to satisfy our customers and very hard to keep going as a company, knowing that we're making progress towards our goals.
Right.
Yes. So, well, those are all the questions we have today. So I just want to say thank you so much for being our guest and sharing your expertise with us. I know that people are want to be able to get in touch with you and they're going to want to learn more about Six Sigma Brazil. So can you tell us how people can get in touch with you and how they can get in touch with Six Sigma Brazil?
Oh yes. Well, just to let everybody know, on the 30th of November and the 1st of December, we're going to have the big conference, which we call Congresso Internacional Six Sigma Brazil. And it's going to happen in the Hotel Pullman in Vila Olímpia, right in front of the mall. And it's going to be a very important momentum that we're going to have. And together, and next year in May 2022, we're going to have another one that's going to be online. And in October, the other one that's going to be face-to-face, like this year as well. So we're working hard at this moment. And whoever wants to talk to me, I think I can share my can I share right here my email or something, or my cell phone, which would be easy, or just I can share it later.
Um, I think Barbara says you can.
I can. So okay, it's nidis dot lima at lean6sigma.com.br. Então, nidis.lima@lean6sigma.com.br. So that's in English and Portuguese. And if anybody wants to call me on the phone, it's 11 for São Paulo, 999571382. 11 em São Paulo, 999571382. The needis has an E instead. Needis. It's a needis, ponto lima, arroba lindsexilian.com.br. It's only to fix the needis. It's Nides. Needis. It's the end of my name.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. And before we end the episode, oh, yes, look. Absolutely.
So fast. Wonderful voice.
Yes. All right. Before we end our episode today, first of all, I want to say muito obrigada for being our fabulous guest today, and of course for being my fabulous friend too. And I'm going to go over the insights from our episode for everybody today. So, right. Insight number 1. The main barrier to a data-driven consolidation of companies is that some people are used to working in the past when we didn't have data or it wasn't easy to collect, and we're resistant to change. And the truth is that's not just the people working on the shop floor, that's people in management as well. So thinking about how to manage your processes and look at what's happening through data can actually really be a change for many companies and many people. Insight number 2. The best way to help people overcome that resistance to change is to be a kind leader. So even if you're used to managing with data and using data, please remember, other people are not. And sometimes looking at the numbers is difficult for people. They feel worried about it. They feel like they're going to be judged as maybe not doing enough, or they may be judged if they don't understand how to read all of the data. So please remember, be kind, help people learn how to use all the data that we have so we can make better decisions. Insight number 3. The first thing that you need to do and have to become a data professional actually is something very simple, and it's a computer, because a lot of the data analysis that we're going to do and the things that we're going to use really come from a computer. So whether it's making something in Excel, doing research, to find that data within your company, a very simple thing is your laptop and computer and the computer programs to do it. Insight number 4. We need to put action to the voice of the market to really pull insights out of the data and connect them with the actions we need for our business. So again, super simple. If our customers say they need this many of something at this time and our data shows us, oh, we're only producing this many of this, we can see that there's a gap. So it's always to look first at what do our customers need, and then look at our data in relationship to that and say, oh, there's a gap. Now, what actions do we need to take to close that gap, and how can we measure those actions to make sure we are closing that gap? And the 5th insight is really use color. That is one simple way that you can actually make the data that you display easier to use. If something is going well, make it green. That's our traditional color in process improvement. If there's something that isn't meeting the target and meeting customer needs, make it red. And that way it'll stand out, and we can say, oh, this is something we need to look at and figure out and make a decision about what to do better. And also just be cognizant that actually, since many of us are working in the virtual world, that things can appear small on a screen, or if you have a small laptop screen, when you're presenting data, just use the little feature to expand and maybe make things bigger. If you notice everybody is leaning in like this, when you're presenting the data, blow it up and make it a little bigger. That is very kind for people. All right, 5 great insights from today. And always it's a surprise to me that our time goes by so quickly together. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody, for the 14th episode of Cultura de Excelencia. Thank you so much for joining me and Maria Hyeronides Barros de Lima today. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone again next week, where we'll be talking about going to Gemba, how to be a good and kind leader when visiting the factory floor, and we'll be talking with another great woman in Lean. Until then, I hope you have a fabulous week filled with purpose, process improvement, and kindness. Bem pessoa, esse foi o 14º episódio de Cultura de Excelência. Muito obrigado por se juntar a mim e a Maria Hyeronides hoje. Espero ver todos vocês na semana que vem, onde vamos falar sobre Go to Gembo, o bem líder ao tchau de fábrica retorna, com mais uma mulher incrível no Lean. Até lá, espero que você tenha uma semana fabulosa e cheia de propósito, melhoria de processo e gentileza. Ciao, ciao, everyone.